What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you are doing well. So you will hear, can Hedera H bar go to $1? Can Kaspa reach $5? You hear all of these different predictions. But right now, what's very clear is crypto is not only undervalued, but we are in the first year of a post all-time high Bitcoin market, which means we are about 180 days into the current bear market. And whatever happens from here, regardless of the prediction of Kaspa going to $1 to $5 or TAO going to $5,000, we've got a lot of work to do in A, building conviction, and B, making sure that we take advantages of the market at a certain level of discount. Now, majority of the times, the old cryptocurrencies are way better to hunt in a bear market than a lot of the speculative assets that are not, they don't have any history in terms of being around for a long time. However, we'll look through a mix of cryptocurrencies and I'll give you my honest take on where the market is going. So as of today, if you don't follow the kind of macro picture, I think you are already at a disadvantage. So what are we looking at here? This is the Federal General Trading Account. Now, if you look at April back in 2025, we've hit a low here of $296 billion. All right. Let's just take this to a full screen so you guys can see it. We've actually come down and hit 290 billion around, I think it was the first week of July. That was the lowest that we've hit. And that actually led to a massive run for the price of Bitcoin. What we've seen recently in a space of about 2 weeks, we've seen this go from almost $1 trillion to $748 billion. Now that means there is more liquidity in the market, hence why you've seen Bitcoin trading around $70,000. But this range is very, very important. Why? Because we had this bear flag. We're currently in a bear flag, but we've had this previously. And if you see the previous bear flag, you'll almost notice that it is exactly the same thing that's happened prior in this other range over here. So let me just show you what's happened here. If you look at this price structure here, it's almost identical to what's really happening right now in this price structure over here. Okay. Almost identical. And normally the fall is exactly the same or the same length as the bear, the bear flag. So if we do drop out of here, the chances are we are going to see lower prices for Bitcoin, perhaps maybe even $48,000, which is my cycle low. But as we take it, as we stand right now, 58 or 59,800 is the current low for the Bitcoin price. You can see that wick over here. That was our cycle low. Now, do I think this is gonna hold? Before that, obviously, Bitcoin has to come down and test several different levels. The first level being $70,000. We need to hold above that. But without the liquidity, it's going to be difficult. What's driving this? US inflation tripled last month. But that's what the headline will say based on the gasoline or gas prices. However, the core CPI was relatively better. Now, what's looming in the background is a massive geopolitical, geostrategic game that's been playing in the background. The US is considering or is actually selling its oil from its strategic reserves. They understand that whatever energy shocks that are happening right now, they are going to benefit the United States. And currently there's almost like 68 tankers, massive oil tankers with huge capacities from Asian countries right now in southern United States, in Louisiana, in all the other oil producing oil hubs. And they are going to be buying United States crude oil, which is a massive dynamic shift, especially considering the situation in the Straits of Hormuz is still very much under threat. So the lead up to that, and this is going to be inflationary, okay? Currently, Iran and US talks are ending without a deal. Very disappointing, but don't fall for these headlines because there's something that you need to consider, which is it's disappointing that the talks have broken down. But optimists say two first things. Firstly, there's a mere fact that the Americans and the Iranians were able to get around the table. There is a talk of Chinese involvement and other things. Secondary, the nature of diplomacy is that every day ends in failure until you achieve success. So don't take this as a never-ending conflict. I think it will continue. I do see oil spiking again towards any escalation, which is already kind of happening at the moment, and oil prices need to be carefully watched. Okay. And just to tell you what oil is doing right now, West Texas, after a massive run, right now, American West Texas crude oil has been on the decline for the last few days. Since the 7th of April, we have seen a massive drop here of around, I believe, to the bottom at one stage. This was around 23%. So that's good. The one that we need to watch beyond any speculation is the dollar. Now, you can see the dollar here on the daily is overbought. RSI hasn't crossed over, but we need to see what's happening with the dollar on a macro level. On a weekly chart, it seems like the dollar has crossed over on the RSI, and any kind of dollar relief here will see Bitcoin attempt to break out of this $74,000 range, but it is not a bull market yet. Does it mean that we buy now? Of course, depending on what you're tracking, depending on what you're looking at, dollar cost averaging is the best way to obviously beat any market. This is the market cap SUI trend that's still intact. Any break below this level for SUI would mean that the overall kind of downside will be very difficult to break this market cap. Having said that, on the daily, although the weekly looks promising, on the daily, I believe we will come down and test this level, this yellow line, once again. So any SUI buyers should be conscious that should we break around this $3.5 billion or even $3.2 billion, I do believe the best or the main opportunity in buying SUI is around $2.4 billion market cap. UNISWAP is an interesting one. I've been watching UNISWAP since the Biddle fund of BlackRock started to look into UNISWAP. UNISWAP low candle here is around this $2, which is the manipulation, just under $2, which is around the manipulation candle from the October mass liquidations. But if you look at this on a weekly, then you'll understand Uniswap will perform well with Ethereum. And right now, Uniswap, if you are thinking about DCAing, well, you are going to enter a prolonged period here of a sideways downward grind. But the $2 level, I think, represents for me a very good entry. And then you've got a 198 here from all the way back in November 2020. The price is not a million miles away from the all-time low. So anybody who's obviously watching Uniswap, you need to think like you need to hunt in the bear market. What we have here is Chainlink. Now, Chainlink has been on this massive sideways, this massive support line. And in the bear market of 2022, for a period of around 286 days, or 483 days, it's spent between this range here. And we are now firmly in the same range. I use these large caps, these quality projects as a key indicator because these will tell me how far off I am personally from DCAing into what I'm actually watching my long-term conviction plays. I think Uniswap this cycle could represent a very good option, especially with the integration of Claude and other AI projects. And again, you have Virtuals Protocol. We've been watching Virtuals like a hawk here. And what you have seen with Virtuals Protocol is a particular uptrend going back from the October low candle here. And it's tapped this and it's been using this as a support. But you are seeing we are struggling here at the top of this descending bearish move to the downside. Even if I lift this up a little bit, you'll actually see that we have a 3-touch confirmation of this trend line. As long as it's inside, and again, a breakdown below this yellow line here will represent a great buying opportunities, which I believe Virtuals Protocol with agentic AI development is going to be super key. Other tokens or coins that I'm watching, of course, we talked about Bittensor TAO. We talked about the reversal here on the weekly. I've done extensive video analysis on Bittensor TAO, why I believe the $200 level is the first line of defense. After that, you could be heading for a generational buy entries. But what we are seeing here post the FUD is very clear. I must admit, the natural 377 barrier is also where it reversed from. So if you look over here, it was the price hit around that $377 level, which is a massive resistance. So very good on the daily. I mean, the RSI is literally oversold, and it will continue to stay here for a little bit. But if I just move this slightly down, what I would say is it's now below the 200-day moving average, and a support level of around this $220, $230 to about $200 is probably where you need to start taking a major interest for Bittensor TAO. The strongest coin in the market right now seems to be Ethereum. There's not a lot of breakdown with ETH, but on a macro long-term analysis on the weekly, you start to see where Ethereum is getting its strength. So if you go back to Liberation Day low here, around this Liberation Day was around 1,400 and some change. But if you look at the last cycle, the support goes 1, 2, and 3. So this is bear market 2022, just under $900 was the low here. But in the last kind of 4 years, it actually came down to this Liberation Day 1,400 level, this green and red circle here, just under $400 Liberation Day bottom. And since then, we had 1766 as the local low, and that came around the February liquidation event. So Ethereum is looking very, very strong. Of course, any retest, I'll be looking towards this yellow line, and of course around this $1,700 level. Hopefully that holds, and that becomes the probably what I consider to be bear market. So number one was 2021, and this is 2025, and then you've got 2026 over here as potentially a bear market low. $900, $1,390 to $1,400, and then $1,700. However, in a bear market, if this trend breaks, I'll be basically saying Ethereum could be retesting this candle here, perhaps maybe dipping below. But I do believe this region here could be Liberation Day 2025, could actually be the bottom. 1397, 1400 could be the bottom for Ethereum. Other coins that I like that I'm looking at, Neo Protocol, of course. If you look at Neo Protocol on the slightly bigger time frame, you would see that it has, let's go to the weekly here. Neo Protocol on the weekly here is pretty much you buying it at the very, very bottom of its macro 4-year cycle. It's actually never had any significant pumps. If you look at this resistance from here, this was the high of 2024. December 2024, it was around $7, $8. And again, prior to that, we had March 11th, 2024 as its ATH for this current cycle. Not ATH as the, current runs bull cycle. This is an important coin because they've obviously improved a lot in terms of their overall staking and their AI. So big funds like, again, Grayscale are bidding this to be at least a $20 token. I think this will do very, very well, this particular coin, Layer 1 AI, especially in light of perhaps what's going on with Bittensor TAO as well. So this is probably the only other important AI project very close to NVIDIA that I would consider as a long-term play here. Bitcoins here, Solana is bearish, has been bearish for a very long time. Solana on the weekly is very weak. Again, Solana is still, in fact, Solana is breaking down from its bear flag. You can see here, this bear flag was started back in February, and you can clearly see that it's kind of dropping out now. So could we actually see $67, which was the low? Absolutely. Why not? This line is going to now act as resistance for Solana, and Solana continues to be bearish in the short term. So you've got to look at the big coins. We talked about Sui's market cap, but what you're seeing here is, again, Sui developing that bear flag, as with most of the other coins in its range. Solana is just broken down from the bear flag, and Sui is no exception. I think Sui will also do the same thing, providing here, look, we have a 3-touch trend, and we have the upper part of the channel acting as resistance. And for me to buy more SUI, I mean, it would be generational towards the 60 cent level. So far, apart from the bag that I'm going to hold for the next few years, I am not buying any more at these levels. I will DCA heavily into the SUI blockchain as we move towards the 60 cent level. Now, a lot of people will say DXB, that's not going to happen and whatever. You can actually buy it if you believe, genuinely believe. If you would bid, a couple of years ago, or about a year ago when it did its all-time high, everybody was like, yeah, I wish I bought this under $1. So if you're one of those people, listen, none of this is financial advice. You got to do what you have to do. But I can actually see the range is very, very obvious to me. And for now, I'm looking for a break below this blue line here and then generational entries in the green zone. Kaspa is obviously, listen, Kaspa has a crazy, crazy community. I love the Kaspa community. I think the Kaspa's long-term future is going to be dependent on a big fund coming in at some point. I think there's noises with Grayscale, but you can see here the price is that boring sideways channel. Again, most of these are performing or forming what looks like a bear flag, with the exception of a few coins. But look, we come up here, we spend time sideways up to the channel top, break down below, and then we test back up to the upside. I do believe it will hold around this 3 to 2 cent level. Anything below that will be, again, crazy generational entries. And I never skip generational entries. That's why I've got the big red dot over there. In terms of other things worth looking at, privacy coins have been running. Of course, there's one that I own called Zen. This is Coinbase's privacy version of Zcash. It's been around same level, same time, same number of years as Zcash. Of course, it has been, privacy coins have been doing relatively well on few days of consecutive news within the privacy sector. Zcash obviously leading this. And then you have Zbec. And remember when I drew this box many, many months ago, price has moved obviously out of this sideways channel. But as with everything else, if you look at this on the weekly, we had 1, 2, 3. We had a strong breakout reversal of the downward trend. Again, it's time to retest this yellow green box. I do believe it doesn't go below this golden line around 19,036. Zbec is very, very strong. Ondo Finance looking slightly bearish and has been for a while. You know what? It's actually been moving like Solana as of late. And what we are seeing is the bottom channel that needs to be broken. And I do believe we will get below or a test of that 20 cent level, 20 to 22 cent. If we break below that, I can see generational entries above 10 cents, 12 cents, that sort of thing. But right now, the bigger question is they are tokenizing everything in this world. But what does it do for the token? The token is purely a governance token. In order to improve that, they've come up with their layer 1 Ondo chain. Nobody tokenizes more US treasuries, stocks, or anything else than Ondo Finance. Investors need to ask themselves the question, what is that going to do for the Ondo token purely? Do I just want it in order to have governance control? Or do I genuinely think that Ondo is going to be the most important RWA projects? Questions that no doubt will be answered in the future. But as a speculative asset, again, the moment it's backed by the real, the real economy of these tokenized treasury assets and stocks and bonds, I think it does really well. No unlocks till January 2027, in which that time the number of tokens in circulations will become 7.5 billion. So from the current 5.5, it will add another 2 billion in the mix. But you need to ask yourself fundamental questions like how does a project make money? What is the utility of the token? And are there any token burns? How does that help the scarcity and the economy and the use case of that cryptocurrency? Everything else is bullshit. So for example, Kaspa could be seen as a secondary Bitcoin purely because of the fundamentals. And I think it's already starting to catch a lot of the Bitcoin maxis and people are paying attention to it, that kind of thing, So it has to have utility. It's fast, it's proof of work, it's decentralized. In a week that we've seen decentralizations come into question with a potential issues of the TAO accusations. One token, and I have to big up Monad here. Monad broke out of this sideways channel, and obviously right now it's trading 5 cents. It's trading above the seed prices. This is a very, very strong performance in a bear market. Again, we are seeing this as relatively cheap, tiny, with small volume. I mean, today's volume here is average volume is about 8.14 million for a layer one that is EVM compatible, and that has a lot of money into it. I wouldn't talk about the smaller assets. I mean, look, again, speculative assets like chain leaders, Toshi here. Toshi is at a very, very low price right now. Volume compared to, like, say, even Monad, average volume is $364 million. So that is massive. But of course, no one's touching this right now. I would say these smaller meme coins should be, this is something that I would definitely dollar cost average into, in my opinion. Despite how the chart is looking, once the market moves, and it's not only Toshi. I mean, look at Floki, right? Floki's monumental pumps, and now this is what they all look like. Pepe is exactly the same. Again, this blue line goes all the way back to 2023 when it was listed on Binance here. So, it's just under that right now. Still 1.2, $1.4 billion in terms of market cap, and again, if Ethereum runs, Uniswap, and then the chain leader here would be Pepe for those that are looking at Pepe. So that's an extensive market update. Smash a like to the video, of course. Look at the macro. And again, don't be too hasty. Nothing is bullish, nothing is bearish. This is the bear market. And bear markets have a habit of having pumps, or what I call rallies. Bear market rallies then trap people. Then your average price becomes shit. And then you start to all of a sudden wonder what's going on here. If you look at other coins, notable coins here, again, $40. This is outstanding. This is hyper liquid, completely different league because of the fact that more stocks are trading on there than cryptos overall. So this is now becoming a unicorn in trading in general. And I do believe there's a massive shift when it comes to the way we look at the DEXs right now, because crypto DEXs are becoming fast, cheap, reliable, and of course, decentralized. So that's all an attraction for big players. Notable altcoins to keep an eye on. HBAR again, back to 2023 levels, 8.5 cents here. It was around 4.5 cents back in 2023, but these older coins tend to be more stable because they are tried, tested, and proven in a bear market. All right, guys, that's all I've got time for. Again, one last look at Render, under $1 billion right now. Again, Render, I was buying Render at around 40 cents, 50 cents back in 2023. Right now, still over $1 and nearly just under $2. So it is slightly expensive, but could the bear market give you more opportunities? We'll wait and see. But yeah, check out follow me on Twitter anyway. And of course, I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.